Alright, let's dive into some of the biggest moves shaking up the sports and entertainment world right now. And trust me, there's a lot to unpack here, from streaming wars to golf controversies and everything in between. So, let's start with something that's got everyone talking, Disney Plus and its bold move into college football. So, Disney Plus is adding more college football simulcasts this season. On the surface, it's just another streaming service grabbing sports rights, right? But personally, I think this is way more strategic than it seems. Disney's not just trying to boost viewership, they're building an ecosystem. What makes this really interesting is how they are positioning live sports as a way to increase the lifetime value of fans. It's not just about watching a game, it's about hooking you into their entire universe, Disney Plus, ESPN, Hulu, even their theme parks. If you take a step back and think about it, this is Disney playing the long game, trying to make sure you're locked into their brand for years to come. And honestly, it's a smart move, especially when you consider how fragmented the streaming landscape is right now. But here's the thing, Disney's also dealing with some financial pressures. Their sports segment, which includes ESPN, saw a 17% drop in operating income year-over-year. Why? Higher programming and production costs. So, while they're pushing hard into live sports, it's not exactly a cheap strategy. This raises a deeper question: how sustainable is this model? Are they spreading themselves too thin, or is this the only way to stay competitive in a world where Netflix, Amazon, and others are also fighting for sports rights? In my opinion, Disney's betting big on the idea that live sports are the last bastion of appointment viewing. But it's a risky bet, especially when you consider the rising costs and the fact that younger audiences are increasingly cutting the cord. Now, let's shift gears to LIV Golf. If you've been following this saga, you know it's been a rollercoaster. LIV Golf just secured new funding to keep the league going past this season. On the surface, this seems like a win for them, right? But what many people don't realize is that this funding comes after the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund pulled its support. So, who's stepping in now? The lead investor remains unknown, which is suspicious, to say the least. One thing that immediately stands out is the fact that players will become majority equity holders in the league. That's unprecedented for a major global sports league, and it's a huge gamble. Are the players really equipped to handle the business side of things? Or is this just a way to keep them happy while the league figures out its next move? What this really suggests is that LIV Golf is still very much in survival mode. They've got 3 more competitions left this year, and then they are cutting their schedule down to 10 events. That's a significant reduction, and it makes you wonder, can they sustain this model long term? Personally, I think LIV Golf is still searching for its identity. They've got the money, they've got the players, but do they have the fans? And more importantly, do they have a clear vision for what they want to be? It's a league caught between trying to disrupt the status quo and just staying afloat. Now, let's talk about ESPN and their college football broadcasting shakeup. They've announced a bunch of new teams and roles, which is pretty standard stuff, right? But what's fascinating here is the level of talent they are moving around. For example, Mike Monaco is taking over Friday night games, and Matt Barry is shifting to Thursday nights. These aren't just minor changes, they are reshaping the voice of college football on ESPN. What makes this really interesting is how ESPN is balancing experience with fresh faces. They are bringing in new reporters like Cherie Burrs while keeping veterans like Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit in their lead roles. It's a smart way to keep things feeling familiar while injecting some new energy. But here's what I find most intriguing: ESPN is clearly doubling down on college football at a time when the sport is facing some big questions. With conference realignment, nil deals, and the rise of streaming, the landscape is changing fast. ESPN's moves feel like a statement: we're still the home of college football. But is that enough? In my opinion, they're going to have to do more than just shuffle their lineup. They need to innovate, whether that's through new formats, better storytelling, or finding ways to engage younger fans who aren't as tied to traditional TV. Before we wrap up, let's touch on a few other headlines that caught my eye. First, FIFA President Gianni Infantino is still in the hot seat after that privatization controversy. They backed down from the plan, but the damage is done. What this really shows is how fragile FIFA's reputation is right now. One misstep, and the entire soccer world is ready to turn on them. Then there's Vitale, who's battling cancer for the 5th time. His recent update that immunotherapy is working is nothing short of inspiring. It's a reminder of how much bigger life is than sports, and how much we need voices like his in the game. Finally, the USC-Notre Dame rivalry is coming back in 2030. It's a huge deal for college football fans, but what's really interesting is the role Netflix tried to play in acquiring the rights. It didn't work out, but it's another sign of how streaming platforms are becoming major players in sports. If you take a step back and think about it, this is just the beginning. The lines between traditional TV and streaming are blurring, and it's going to change everything. So, what's the big takeaway here? Personally, I think we're in the middle of a massive shift in how we consume sports. Whether it's Disney Plus betting on live games, LIV Golf fighting for survival, or ESPN reshaping its lineup, everyone's trying to figure out what the future looks like. And honestly, it's anyone's guess. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be fascinating to watch. What do you think? Are these moves going to pay off, or are we headed for a major shakeup? Let me know in the comments below.